chose to come and be with us. We're privileged to have everyone here. We hope that you, as you're here, begin to feel the warmth and the joy that we have as a family together. We sometimes have a hard time getting everyone to quiet down because we're so busy enjoying one another. But as we come to worship the Lord this morning, I'd like to read for you our mission, which is building bridges back to God. Our vision is to be an irresistible influence for Jesus, where all people experience acceptance, love, and a personal relationship with God. And our values are integrity, acceptance, relationships, community care, young people, safe place, and prayer. If you're a visitor, we hope you've seen that this is what we stand for by the way that we react with you this morning. So let us begin our service now. Thank you.
Come on up and they can collect the offering, and this goes for Christian education, and so make sure to pull out the wallets. Here, go ahead and collect the offering.
Isn't he wonderful, wonderful, wonderful? Isn't Jesus my Lord wonderful? Eyes have seen, ears have heard, it's recorded in God's word. Isn't Jesus my Lord wonderful? Isn't he wonderful, wonderful, wonderful? Isn't Jesus my Lord wonderful? Eyes have seen, ears have heard, it's recorded in God's word. Isn't Jesus my Lord wonderful? Isn't he wonderful, wonderful, wonderful? Isn't Jesus my Lord wonderful? Eyes have seen, ears have heard, it's recorded in God's word.
Alright, as we finish up, then you can just stay up here on stage with me, and then we're going to do our children's praise. Oh, I need a volunteer. Let's pray over the money. Amen. All right. Okay,
Turn pants up. Okay, put it right over here. Put it there. Put all the way up. Okay. I got another leg. Hold on. Okay. Got enough? Okay. Good. Over there. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, so. Where'd he go? Okay, he's coming back over here. Okay, so what is wrong with their clothes? Okay. Okay. So wait, the dress was too big? Okay, and then the pants were too big? So what's the problem? So they don't fit. So that's the problem. Well, let's see. Did you put the belt right there? No? What's up? Did the dress fit better? No, nothing. Okay. Not gonna fit. So what do they have to do to fit into these clothes? Like grow. You mean like grow taller, grow wider, grow shorter, grow. So you gotta get bigger. Everything. Okay. So do you think that these children, all of them, teenagers next to me, are they growing up Christians? You are a grown-up Christian? Wow. So that means you know every single little thing about Jesus, correct? No. What? He doesn't know everything about Jesus? Do you guys know everything about Jesus? No. No. You do not. So, yeah. Everybody here know every single little thing about Jesus? Nobody? So everybody here is growing in Christ. Everybody is growing in Christ. Yeah. You know that in order for boys and girls to grow, what do they need? They need education. They need water. They need they need sunlight, right? You need to exercise. You need to eat your fruits and vegetables, right? For you to grow. But what do you guys need to grow in Christ? Devotionals. What else? More food. How about food? Yes, good answer. How about your Bible studies that we did today? Does that help us grow? Yes. So the more that we learn, and the more that we study, and the more that we read, and the more that we watch, and just keep doing things like Christ, the more we will grow. It says here, many people say, Jesus is coming soon. Do you believe that? So do I. Guess what? You guys are all right. I believe it too. I know each one of you wants to see Jesus. So I pray you will remember to grow up with Christ daily. Daily. That means every single day. You think about Jesus. You study. You read. will all grow up like Jesus. One volunteer for a prayer. Got it. You can.
Dear Jesus, thank you for our church and help to keep everyone safe here. Amen.
Amen.
Deep and wide, there's a fountain flowing deep and wide. Deep and wide, there's a fountain flowing deep and wide. And wide, there's a fountain flowing deep and wide. And wide, there's a fountain flowing and wide. And there's a fountain flowing and
Good morning. Happy Sabbath. Now it is time to sing our praise song, so the congregation should please stand. Our first song is Blessed Be Your Name.
Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, with streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place, when I walk through the wilderness. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering, where there's pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name.
Our next song is going to be Come Now is the Time to Worship.
Now is the time to worship. Come. Now is the time to give your heart. Come, just as you are to worship. Come, just as you are before your God. Come. One day every tongue will confess you are God. One day every knee will bow. Still a greater treasure remains for those who gladly choose you now. Come, now is the time to worship. Come, now is the time to give your heart. Come, just as you are to worship. Come, just as you are before your God. Come. One day every tongue will confess you are God. One day every knee will bow. Still the greatest treasure remains for us who gladly choose you now. Willingly we choose to surrender our lives. Willingly our knees will bow. With all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, we gladly choose you now. Come, now is the time to worship. Come, now is the time to give your heart. Come, just as you are to worship. Come, just as you are before your God.
Great. Happy Sabbath, everyone. I was just reading in Matthew 7:7. Anybody recalls what it says in Matthew 7:7? Acts, and it shall. But Then I read in the New Living Translation, which I really did like. It says, keep on asking. And then it keeps on saying, keep on seeking. And then it says, keep on knocking, meaning do not stop, do not give up, right? And one of the reasons we're here is to worship and to keep on asking to God. And I know most of us, if not all, have petitions. And if you have a personal petition, please raise your hands. Yes, yes. And we're going to pray for that. And let me grab the other mic. So everyone that can, let us please kneel. Heavenly Father, thank you for your blessings. Thank you,
Colonel, the Air Force, and he continues keeping flying around the world as a United Airlines pilot. He is asking about his Christian experience, and he grew up in the Adventist church, and then as life happened, that became important, and his church experience in that.
Internet. Florida State student dies in a room full of people that just didn't care. Andrew Coffey was found unresponsive on a couch the morning after a Pi Kappa Phi fraternity party in November. He died of acute alcohol poisoning. It wasn't until the next morning that a pledge called 911. His lips are purple, his body is stiff. I can't even wake him up. I honestly don't think he has a pulse. The pledge told the dispatcher. Why the fraternity brothers waited so long to call is a question that wakes me up in the middle of the night, his mom said. There were 100 people at that party. Nobody picked up the phone. 99 of them did nothing to help my son. Andrew died in a room full of people that just didn't care, and he died alone. So there's a lot of kids in the congregation, so I won't read this article, but I'll read you the headline. High school cheerleader buries newborn baby in the backyard. Or how about this? The Florida Governor Rick Scott has joined law enforcement agencies near the site of the deadly school shooting, and he offers his condolences. He says the attack that claimed 17 lives, absolutely pure evil. Evil teenagers who tortured autistic boy 17 for 3 days, free to roam the streets because the judge sees fit not to lock him up. Scattered ISIS attacks in Kirkuk, kill 54. Reports show 77% increase in juvenile human trafficking in Louisiana. I think you get the point. Probably don't need to go on. There is a battle of good and evil, and it is a real battle. I think most of us as Christians, and certainly as Seventh-day Adventist Christians, probably accept it. We probably really do believe that there is this battle. I think it makes a lot of people uncomfortable to talk about it. It's easy to talk about God, fairly easy to talk about Satan, but we don't like thinking about this turmoil that is going around us all the time. And it is. You know, I remember a pastor told me, or he talked in a sermon, and he said, almost every Sabbath morning I get this intense headache. And he goes, I know it's the devil doing it to me. I know it's his goal to not take me to church. But there's always this battle. So we're going to dig into that battle a little bit. First of all, we're going to go to Daniel. Daniel 10, 5 through 13, and I think they'll come up on the screen. A little bit of background here, though. Daniel is known for reading or interpreting dreams. So the king of Cyrus has had a dream, and so Daniel goes to the Lord and he says, Lord, I need to have this explained so I can explain it to him. For 21 days, Daniel has been praying with no answer, but he continues to pray. We pick it up in Daniel 10, verse 5. I got to find my glasses. 10:5 going to 13, he says, I looked up, and before me was a man dressed in linen with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. Those who were with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves, so I was left alone. Gazing at this great vision, I had no strength left, my face turned pale, I was helpless. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees, and he said to me, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I'm about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. This next verse, he said, then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. It's been 21 days. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me for 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. So if you look at the word prince, in Hebrew, it's the word tsar. And in this case, it actually probably means military commander. So we literally see an angel coming from heaven to answer a prayer, but he is detained because there is such a battle going on for the people of this region of Persia that the angel stops and is engaged in battle, in combat, trying to save the people, trying to protect God's people. And finally, Michael comes, they win the skirmish, and now this angel is able to go to Daniel. There is a very real battle. It's a supernatural battle, but I believe it's a physical, they look each other in the eyes kind of battle. So let's go next to Mark. Mark 5, 6 through 10. And to set the scene for this a little bit, Jesus has preached. He's in the boat. He's coming across the lake, and he's going to the other side of the lake. He's trying to get away from the crowds. And as he goes over to the other side, he disembarks his little craft there. And up in the hills, up in the tombs and the rocks, there is a lunatic. This guy is crazy. He is possessed. He breaks things. He hurts people. He screams. In fact, it says, the man lived in the tombs. No one can bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. So this is he's possessed. The devil owns him. But when Jesus comes ashore, what does this man do? He runs immediately to the feet of Jesus. So let's read that just a little bit. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran, and he fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Swear to God that you won't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you evil spirit." So here's what I think is really cool about this. These demons know exactly who Jesus is. They know exactly who has stepped on the shore, and they're terrified of him. And we know how the story goes. Jesus tells the spirits, he says, "What's your name?" And the spirits say, "We are legion because we are many." And they say, "Don't kill us," because they know that in the end they're going to die. And they don't want that yet. And Jesus knows it's not time. So he sends them into the pigs. But it's a very real spiritual battle. They're there. So let's go one more. I love this next verse, or this set of verses I'm going to cover. But it's in Matthew 27, 62 to 66. I'll give you a little background on this. So Jesus has been crucified. He's in the tomb. And the priests and the Pharisees go to Pilate. And they say, "We got a problem. This guy said he's going to be raised in 3 days. So you know that his disciples are going to go steal the body. And that's going to be even worse than it was before." And the way he says it, let's read it so I don't make up his words. I'll just read right here. "The next day, the one after preparation day, the chief priests and Pharisees went to Pilate. 'Sir,' they said, 'we remember that while he was still alive, that deceiver said, "After 3 days I will rise again." So give the order for the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal the body. This last deception will be much worse than the first." So Pilate says, "Take a guard, go make the tomb as secure as you know how." So this is a significant event, the crucifixion of Christ. And it's been a big physical event, right? I mean, so everybody is aware of it. Darkness, earthquakes, all kinds of things. So do you think that Pilate sent his junior varsity team? No, I don't believe he did. As a military guy, I think he probably sent the very best he had. I think he probably sent some very battle-experienced warriors to guard that tomb. Right? So in my mind, when I see this, I see the tomb, I see a giant stone, it's sealed, it's got the Roman seal on it, and I see a group of soldiers guarding it. And they're not average soldiers, they are tough soldiers. But beyond that, I think there's more. Now I'm going to jump into the Desire of Ages a little bit, so I'm going to go on a sidebar here. We're coming up on Easter, which celebrates the crucifixion and the resurrection of Christ. In my opinion means very little, but in my opinion, those are the two events. Without those two events, nothing else matters. If Christ does not die on the cross, and if Christ is not resurrected, nothing else matters. All of the other things are just stories. So this is a very, very important time. The Desire of Ages, chapter 74 to 81, if you've never read them, read them. Just sit down, take the 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and read them through. And it takes you through Gethsemane. It takes you to the beatings. It takes you through Peter's betrayal. It takes you up the Via Dolorosa. It takes you to the cross. And it makes you very sad. Because they're beating your Savior and they're killing your Savior. But then, it takes you into his tomb. And now I'm going to talk about what happens after that. And I'm just going to read this. And I apologize because I don't like it when people read to me, but I can't make this any better than Ellen White says it. The night of the first day of the week had worn slowly away. The darkest hour, just before daybreak, had come. Christ was still a prisoner in the tomb. The great stone was in its place. The Roman seal was unbroken. The Roman guards were keeping their watch. And there, the Prince of Darkness and his evil angels were gathered about the place. Had it been possible, he would have kept forever sealed the tomb that held the Son of God. But a heavenly host surrounded the sepulchre, angels that excel in strength were guarding the tomb and waiting to welcome the Prince of Life. So what we have is this tomb that I described. You've got a big stone, you've got Roman soldiers, but all around it, you have evilness. You have evil angels. I believe Satan was there. And I believe he wanted nothing more than to keep that tomb sealed. Because if he knew if he could get to Tuesday morning and nobody had come out, he was fine. He wanted nothing more than that. The problem is, when Pilate sent his soldiers, these really tough guys, God sent his soldiers. And when God says that these soldiers excelled in strength, I think they were some serious bad soldiers. They were tough, right? And as a military guy, when we have a really key mission, we will send in special operators. And these special ops guys, special forces, you know them as SEALs or Delta Force or those kind of guys, they're different, right? They are different than us. They just are. And I think those are the angels that God sent. I think he has special forces guarding his son's tomb, going, no, this plan goes as I planned. Let there be no debate about it. And it does. Because just a little while before the sun comes up, and behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord has descended from heaven, clothed with the panoply of God. This angel left the heavenly courts. The bright beams of God's glory went before him and illuminated his pathway. His countenance was like lightning, his raiment white as snow, and for fear of him the keepers did shake and became as dead men. Now, priests and rulers, where is the power of your guard? Brave soldiers that have never been afraid of a human foe are now captives, taken without a sword or a spear. The face they look upon is not the face of a mortal warrior. It is the face of the mightiest of the Lord's hosts. This messenger is he who fills the position from which Satan fell. It is he, I think this is kind of cool, it is he who on Bethlehem, above Bethlehem, proclaimed that Christ is born. And now he comes down to the tomb. The earth trembles. The hosts of darkness flee, and this angel rolls away the stone. Heaven seems to come down to the earth. The soldiers see him removing the stone as he would a pebble and hear him cry, Son of God, come forth. Thy Father calls thee. They see Jesus come forth from the grave, and they hear him proclaim over the rent sepulchre, I am the resurrection and the life. As he comes forth in majesty and glory, the angel hosts bow low in adoration. Christ came from the tomb glorified, and the Roman guard beheld him. Their eyes were riveted upon the face of him who they had so recently mocked and derided. In this glorified being, they beheld the prisoner they had seen in the judgment hall, the one for whom they had plaited a crown of thorns. This was the one who had stood unresisting before Pilate and Herod, his form lacerated by the cruel scourge. This was he who had been nailed to the cross, at whom the priests and rulers, full of self-satisfaction, who wagged their heads, said he saved others, but he can't save himself. This was he who had been laid in Joseph's new tomb. The decree of heaven had loosed the captive. Mountains piled upon mountains could not prevent this. So I've told you 3 stories, or we read through 3 stories. One of them just highlights that there's a battle, and it's a wicked battle. The second one, I think, lets us know that evil knows exactly who God is. And evil knows exactly who's going to win this thing. And the third one shows us that Jesus Christ did exactly what he needed to do for us to win this. So there's maybe Diane can help me with this. There's a group called Mercy Me, and I don't know if they're a rock group, but they're a Christian group. And my wife teaches fitness lessons, and she uses this Christian music at a public recreation center because it's kind of jazzy. And the people love it. I don't know that they know it's Christian music, but they love it. But they have a song, and I would sing it to you, but none of us would enjoy that. But one of the verses goes like this. It says, we get pushed down, we get beat up. So our great lives are going to keep us up against the ropes. But hang on, there's hope. Because if Christ is inside us, it won't be a fair fight. Because deep down, we know how this story goes. This goes out to anyone down for the count. It's not over. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Just remember who you belong to. And let me tell you how this ends. We win. Oh, do we win. I think we always have to remember that. I started this off with some sad stories. Things that I find very disturbing. I don't like to think about them. But there's goodness. So New Jersey has been getting pummeled. You know, the whole Northeast has been getting pummeled by these storms. So I love this headline. New Jersey business owner won't let shivering neighbors get out in the cold. Big article, but bottom line, Andrew Van Jura, owner of the family-run Quality Comfort Heating and Cooling business in Somerville, New Jersey, said the decision to lend a hand was automatic. He saw the hardships that his fellow residents were facing, and he didn't hesitate to take action. Because of the unfortunate situation in my community, between losing power and going through another storm, I'm going to provide free labor to anyone who needs repair of their gas or propane furnace. I will get your family through this by helping with damage control. Here's one you don't hear about very often. Homeless man comes to the defense of a female cop. Police in Columbia, South Carolina praised a homeless hero last week. In a gas station parking lot, female police officer was knocked onto the ground several times by a much larger man who had already attacked the store clerk with a knife. Craig Turman, a homeless man, realized something had to be done. He sprang into action, tackled the suspect so the officer could subdue him. She'd done everything she could, he said. I had to do something. Can't judge a book by its cover. 6 inmates are out working in Georgia. It's hot, it's humid, it's miserable. If you've ever been in the deep south, summers are terrible. Their correctional officer collapses. Perfect chance, right? He's armed, he's asleep. They got a van, right? So they know they can take his gun, they can take his van, off they go. Now what they did, all 6 of them ran to this guy. He wasn't breathing. They took off his gun belt, they took off his bulletproof vest, they started CPR, and by the time medical help got there, the guy was breathing. There's good in the world, right? So know that there's a battle. No doubt that there's a battle, but there is good in the world. I'm going to tell you a little story about good that happened in my life, or the first, well, not the first time certainly, but I was in Iraq. I was flying F-16s. It was a hot summer day. I'll never forget it. And we were stationed in Balad. Balad Air Base is just north of Baghdad. And it was commonly called Mortaritaville, because the bad guys would set up around the perimeter of the base and throw mortars in. And mortars are just little bombs that come in and they explode. Totally random, no aiming them, you just, and they come in and they blow up and they help hurt people. Well, the coalition forces had come up with a system that would detect these launches, which is way smarter than me. I have no idea how it worked, but it was math and computers and stuff. And these things would launch, and in the sector, it would calculate what sector of the base it was going to impact. And in that sector, you would hear on a speaker called a giant voice, it would go, incoming, incoming. And when you heard incoming, you did one of 2 things. If you were near a shelter, you ran and you dove in the shelter. If you didn't, you just laid down. And unless the mortar kind of hit right on you, you were going to be fine. But it was a little unsettling. So that was Mortaritaville. So I'm coming in, I land there at Balad. I'm taxiing in. Young crew chief, who is the guy that kind of guides the airplane. You've seen him on TV. So I'm taxiing in, he's waving me in. He's not real enthused. I'm not real enthused. I'm tired. It's been 7 hours in an airplane. I'm hot. I got to debrief this mission. I want to go to bed. So he comes up, he puts the chocks in, tells me my brakes are set, tells me to kill the engine. So I shut down the engine, I open the canopy. So the canopy's coming up, 120-degree Iraq air comes into the canopy. Whew, oh, always smell bad over there. So it's hot, it smells bad, I'm grumpy, I'm not in a good mood, I'm tired, my back hurts. So I reach down and I hand him, this young airman, Airman Eisman, never forget his name, hand him my helmet bag with my helmet in it. And I give it to him and he takes it and he's walking to put the helmet over by the fire extinguisher. And I push out of the cockpit and I sit up on the canopy rail and there's a ladder. I'm ready for bed. I want to get this mission debriefed and I want to go to bed. And so I climb out and I'm stepping down the ladder and there's 5 or 6 rungs on this ladder maybe. And I'm stepping down it and as my first foot hits the concrete, so I'm still holding onto the ladder, 1 foot's on the ladder, 1 hits the ramp, Iceman grabs me, tackles me, throws me on the ground, and is laying on me. And his face is right here. And I look at him and I go, Iceman, what are you doing? Get off me. And he goes, no, sir, there's incoming. This young kid threw his body on top of my body to keep a young lieutenant colonel at the time alive. And I thought, you know what, I knew we had this contract. You know, I would die for any of my brothers. But now I had seen it in action. This guy was ready to go. So I do travel the world a lot, and it's awesome. It's fortunate. You know, sometimes the guy gets to go with me. But Marriott is my hotel of choice. I love Marriott. And it just so happens last year they had a commercial that I kind of fell in love with. And the words go like this. It would be great if human beings were great at being human. And if all mankind were made up of kind women and men. It would be wonderful if common knowledge was knowledge commonly known, and if the light from being enlightened into every heart was shown. It would be glorious if neighbors were neighborly and indifference was a forgotten word. It would be awesome if we shared everything and being greedy was absurd. It would be spectacular if the golden rule was golden to every man, and the good things that we ever did was everything that we can. So my verse for the day today is 1 Corinthians 13:13. And everything that leads up to it builds to this punchline. But in 1 Corinthians 13, in my Bible it's titled Love. But in 1 Corinthians 13, the first verses say things like, if I can speak in tongues, but I don't have love, I'm just making noise. If I have faith that can move a mountain, but I don't have love, what do I have? If I can host, if my gift of hosting is there, but I have no love, I'm just throwing a party. Without love, you have nothing. And verse 13 of chapter 13 says, and now, these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So a couple of years ago, and I first heard this story last year, but it was one of those New England winters that was just bitter. And it was one of those winters where during the day it would get just warm enough to tease you, and things would start to melt a little bit, and then at night it would cold snap freeze. I mean, just deep, deep, hard cold. Well, this lady had a fantastic setup. She had this nice house, and every morning she would sit, she'd pour herself a cup of Ovaltine, and she'd look out the window, and she would look at this open field that led out to a creek bed, and a nice little creek or a river kind of, and she would look at the wildlife, and she would look at the birds. And it was just her way of starting the day. She'd sit there and drink her Ovaltine, and she just looked at the day. And so this morning she got up, it had been a brutally cold night, and she looked out there and she saw a goose. Just this one goose out there by himself sitting. She couldn't tell if he was on the river or next to the river, but he was just sitting there. She thought, now that's odd. And she sat there watching, drinking her warm drink, and she caught some motion out of her corner of her eye, and she saw a flock of swan. So this formation of swan is flying over just like that. Flying over, and she sees the swan flying, and she looks and she goes, now that's a problem. Because if you don't know this, geese and swan do not get along. They battle for the same resources. So they tend to be very territorial. They kind of don't like each other. So she sees these swan, and they go, well, I hope they don't even see the goose. You know, just fly on by, guys, because I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know what it is. That's not what happened. The lead swan sees this goose, spreads out his wings. Ooh, let's go take a look. And he circles around this goose, and he comes down and he lands right next to the goose. The goose kind of jumps a little. And he goes, well, we know the goose is alive. And this swan walks over to this goose, and he looks at him, kind of bewildered a little bit, and looks at him. And he takes his head, and he pecks at the swan. And the lady goes, oh no, this isn't going to be good. And he just starts pecking and pecking and pecking. And pretty soon a couple more of the swan come down, and they're pecking at this goose. They're just standing around and pecking at it. Before she knows it, there's 5 or 6 swan right next to this lone goose, and they're all just going pecking at it. And she's distraught. She goes, I don't even know what to do. They're going to kill this bird. But what she sees is the goose start to go, oh, and he's kind of stretching out, and his wings are stretching out a little bit. And he starts to put his wings out and move them very stiff. And the swan line up, and they start pecking the ice off of his wings. And she sees the ice crystals falling in the sunlight. They're just de-icing this bird. He had been frozen. He had been snap frozen over the night, and they're pecking at him, getting all the ice off of his wings. And so pretty soon, the goose is standing there, and he's like this, and he goes, wow, that is so cool. And then the swan take off. And they circle overhead, and it's, I don't know if they talk to each other, but it's like the swan guys are going, come on, dude, let's go. And the goose is just going, right? So the lead swan circles back down, and he comes down, and his buddy comes down, and there's two of them, and they circle around this goose, and the conversation's got to be something like, what are you doing? Let's go. We're giving you the opportunity. Come on, we're getting along. It's good. Goose doesn't move. So the next thing the lady sees, the swan are pecking at his feet. And they keep pecking. And pretty soon the goose goes, and he's unfrozen from the ground. The swan take off. I think they call back to the goose, and the goose takes off. And he flies off with them, which is unheard of. They don't get along. You know, we've been to a lot of churches. We were in the Air Force for 31 years. We've probably been to close to 30 churches. Every church I've been into has swan and geese. Right? Because we always bicker inside the church. There's always some of that tension. If I were the devil, where would I attack? I would attack two places, the church and families. We see what he's doing to families, right? And we see what he's trying to do to church. And I think the geese and the swan thing plays out pretty well in church for him. So what if mankind was kind? What if, instead of pecking at each other to hurt each other, we tried backing ourselves around each other? What if we had somebody in distress and we protected them? What if we had somebody that we didn't agree with necessarily, but instead of beating them down, we lifted them up? Think about what the world would be like. What if we were just kind? So we're the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're the remnant church. We have the three angels message, right? We are supposedly the church. If we are bickering amongst ourselves, or we are bickering with our neighbors, or we are not pleasant human beings, who's going to want to join us? I don't want to be around people that are grumpy all the time, right? We have the message. We know that there's this battle raging. We know it. We know that the enemy knows exactly who's going to win. And we know that Jesus Christ was nailed to a cross. He was put in a tomb, and he came back out, and he said, I am the resurrection. I am the life. So my challenge is to live that. Be the swan that take care of your brother geese. Let your church be a place of harmony. Live your life so when people look at you, they go, I want something that that guy has or that gal has. I don't know what it is, but I want it. Again, thank you so much for having me out here. I've just loved it. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that wonderful message. I hope each one of us has been blessed with this message. And I do hope that it's going to uplift us and move us closer to God. And at this time, I will ask the deacons to rise up so that we can be able to take the offering. May we bow down for a word of prayer before we take the offering. Thank you, God, for this time. We want to glorify your holy name. And at this time, as we take this opportunity to give back to you, I want to pray that may you be able to use each and every one of us to give back to you so that that message can be able to be spread and preach to the whole world before thy kingdom comes. And we pray that you will bless each one of us. For those who have to give today, may you bless them. And for those who don't have, Lord, may you give them an opportunity to be able to give you another time. This humble prayer, for we pray, believing and trusting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good afternoon. Now is our time for our church life. I have one announcement I'd like to make, and then Kelly will come up with the other announcement. I'm kind of leading our fire drill. It will be next week. If you can see the write-up in the bulletin was stated very well. I'll read that to you. Next Sabbath, March 24th, we will have a scheduled fire drill during our time together. This is our first step in developing a protocol for emergencies so that we are better prepared in the event something does occur. When you hear the signal, please remain calm, help those nearby, especially children and older members, and exit the building at the nearest available exit. Deacons and others will be assigned to check all rooms to ensure the building has been cleared. As we identify our challenges, we can make the appropriate improvements to be prepared. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. So if I could have a couple deacons meet me right over here after the service, we can finish getting all the details prepared. Once again, this is just to make sure we can work as a group to get out of here if we need to and that sort of thing. I've never had one at a church, and so this will be fun. So, yes. The signal? It is the same signal that we'll hear if we are supposed to leave the building. So we'll pull the actual fire alarm, we'll hear the bells and whistles so that you can understand exactly what we're supposed to listen for to do what we're going to do. Thank you, Kelly.
This is just a reminder that on March 31st, we will not be having service at church. We will be going out into the community to do random acts of kindness. Our schedule will be from 10:30 to 11:30. We will have snacks, and we will give you an opportunity to sign up for whatever activity you would like to do. And then between 11:30 and 12, we will have a quick devotional to send you guys off to do these random acts of kindness. And then we will come back at 2, where we will have lunch, and we will talk about our experiences, and we will also ask that you guys send your pictures in while you're doing these random acts of kindness, so we can all see them while we have lunch and talk about it. So I hope you will all come and enjoy and have a great time. We'll let you know on that day. Thank you. Random comment. And we hope that you guys will come and be with us and spend some time with us on the 31st as we bless other people outside of our church.
Ready to read? Men of God Ministries. We're going to meet up on April the 12th at 7 o'clock. And Eric is organizing it. So all the men are invited. Please bring a friend, not a woman, just men. So everybody's invited, and we're going to have so much fun. My friend here has a lot of time on his hands to create a trailer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the Sabbath. Thank you for the weekly reminder, not only of your creation, but that in the end, we win. So we ask you to give us faith, encouragement, when it seems like it's still up in the air and it's not already predetermined. We ask you to give us strength in our personal lives to be able to manage as we see things, reports from local and far, and forgive us when we have our doubts. We ask you to be with all of us and every family represented here until we meet again. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. So please bring back your activity bags to the corner. Happy Sabbath.